Yay, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're coming from in the parts of the world. I'm Brian. Thank you for joining Revit Radio. That's Desiree, depending on where you have her. There will be no Melissa with us today, so it's just the two of us. Melissa had some other things to take care of today, so you get down with just the Mackies. No Thiessens to bring that fun light atmosphere to us. But for those of you who've not been here before, this is Revit Radio, where you ask questions and we answer them. We did start this a little bit early because wasn't sure if we're going to get the meeting started, some technical issues behind the scenes. And we have one question so far. But while we're waiting for you guys to type your questions in the question and answer pod, because we do have that with Zoom, we have question and answers in the chat. Please feel free to put those in the question and answers pod. It does make life a little bit easier for us. Otherwise, feel free to heckle us, do whatever you want to do in the chat. And hopefully, last little chat we did, we actually had to keep constantly kicking a guy out who kept coming in asking really dumb, like I swear to God, it was a 10-year-old thinking he was being funny questions inside of there. So hopefully we won't have any of that to do, but we'll just see what's going on here. So I do always like to start off on one thing. And in the last month, there were a few questions on, what are some good examples of using global parameters? And ironically, this week I've been helping a client model a building, and it was a fairly typical building. So I wanted to come into some of the thought processes of what I was showing them on global parameters as well. So one of the things that we were talking about is they had, typical ceiling heights. Like, hey, 90% of the ceilings in this floor are going to be this tall unless we needed to change it. And then I started thinking, well, cool, if we know the ceiling's going to be this tall, there were then like soffits that had typical heights, et cetera, et cetera. So this is one of the thoughts I came up with on getting into some of this. So I'm just going to go in, I'm in a floor plan. I guess I could switch to an RCP so we can actually see it happen. And I'm just going to go in and put
Show your screen, maybe?
oh, I'll probably share my screen. That would probably help, huh? Share screen. See, I started this so long ago, forgot to do that.
All right.
Now I got to readjust my screen so I can see everything else going on. Okay, so gonna go put a ceiling in, not a big deal. Whatever, we'll grab the acoustical ceiling, drop one in here. So kind of one of the thoughts were there are a lot of things in Revit that will allow us to associate elements to global parameters. Ceilings will be one of those. You are going to see that we have height offset from level. And over here, we do have the value for being able to come in and associate this to a global parameter. So we come in here and say like ceiling height typical, right? And now we've got our typical 8-foot high ceiling height. Again, I wouldn't do this for a one-off ceiling, but the particular project I'm on, there were like 40 or 50 ceilings that were all going to be the typical height. So we went through and did that. Then most of the time, we end up having other types of walls that we might want to be saying, hey, this just goes to 6 inches above the ceiling, or this goes right up to the underneath side of the ceiling deck, or whatever that might be. So again, just kind of getting into those global parameters, go into my global parameters under the Manage tab. And then I'm just going to add a new global parameter. I'm going to call it above ceiling. Actually, I'm going to say ceiling above wall typical or something like that. And I'm just going to make this a length parameter, right? So we've got our actual ceiling height typical, and then the walls that would be above that, the typical height for that, right? So I can come in here and just say this is 8'6". Now, on these walls, I can't just, if they were just to go up underneath the ceiling, then absolutely I could grab those and just make those have the typical ceiling height. But the ones that I wanted to go above it, I wanted to be 6 inches above that. So then I'm going to come down here and create a new parameter called wall above tip ceiling or something like this, correct? Oops, I hate this. I'm going to modify that and put it under other because this is literally going to have a formula. And this is one thing I have noticed. Oops, I was on the wrong one highlighted anyway. There's one thing I've noticed that's weird about global parameters. If I don't put them in the correct location, they don't adjust. So if I come down here and grab this one and say, hey, I want to modify this one and group it under other, cool, it's under other, and I say, okay, notice it doesn't adjust. There's some sort of glitch. I don't know if it's for everybody, if it's just for me, but there is some sort of glitch here. So I should have put that in there to start with. But then basically what we can do is just start doing some formulas inside of here. So I want to come in here and just do this formula. And I even rebooted my machine. There we go, it is working. I was not getting the Control C's and Control V's to work in Revit this morning, so I had to reboot. Nope. Control V, Control V. Yes, why are you not doing that for me? try this again. Control C. I really don't want to have to type it twice. There we go. So basically, I'm just saying, hey, take the typical ceiling height and the above wall ceiling height, give this together. So now I can start doing things like taking these walls. Now, the one thing you're going to notice on walls, if I were to go make this wall unconnected, for the unconnected height, we do not get a global parameter. So I can't come in here and say this is just an unconnected wall at the global parameter height I'm looking for. But I can say start at the level, end at the same level, and then I do get a global parameter in here for top offset. Yes, I know you're going to yell at me first. We'll do the global parameter for the top offset first. Come on. Level 1 up to level 2. You should be fine now. All right, we're going to click off to the side because it's freaking out. Go up to level 2. Try that one more time. So I'll come over here and say, I'll leave it at level 2, and then I'll say, cool, let's do the top offset for a wall above the typical ceiling, and then we just go set this down to level 1. So I can go from one level to another level as long as I'm going to use the top offset. You cannot get a global parameter for unconnected height, but you do get that global parameter for top offset. All right, and I've shown how I've used that top offset in the past on how to go through and set it up. And now the cool part about it is you can see, hey, cool, there's my ceiling, there's my walls over there. And of course, if I go manage these global parameters and I come in here and say, no, my typical ceiling height was going to be 9 feet, then that's going to move not only the ceiling height, but all of those walls as well. So it is kind of one of those tools that I've been using this with a client where we're modeling some existing structure. And like I said, there's like 32 offices the same. There's all these different walls, even soffit walls that are coming in. Coming inside of there and saying, cool, we've got to do that. So we've been using those global parameters. And we've got one for level 1 and we've got one for level 2 in the event those change. So currently they're both ceiling heights are typical 11 feet for both floors, but we said level 1 ceiling height typical and level 2 ceiling height typical.
It's just the other group. You can switch that, you can switch that parameter to anything but other. It's just other that won't let you do it.
Oh, really? You're playing with that?
Yeah.
If I go manage back global parameters and I say, cool, I want to take this one and change it to anything else.
I tried constraints and fire protection and then a bunch of other ones, only other.
That's funny.
It's forcing you not to use other.
I guess it just doesn't like the other. Well, if I create a new one, does it work? Test. Other. Yeah, as long as you create it under other. That is very bizarre. I guess that's a thing I need to submit to Autodesk. Now, if it's under other, can I switch it to something else?
Yeah, just probably can't switch it back.
And then switch it back to, oops.
Things we do in our free time.
It's just those little things that you're like, now let's go see if we can put it under other. Nope. Interesting. So cool. I always love finding bugs on Revit Radio. The nice part about that is now I have a little YouTube clip that I can say, hey, go watch the first 3 minutes and you'll see what I'm talking about. Cool. So that's really all I had to talk about. Just one of those things. And I think it was Tom who'd asked other ideas for global parameters. Like I said, for me, I use them quite often in projects as we get into them and start working. It just depends on, we have to remember to set those up. If somebody wanted these other 3 walls and they forget to do it, and they just came in and said, yeah, I needed this to be 9'6", and they do the 9'6" for this, and then they don't even think about it, and they forget to associate it to the global parameter, obviously that one's not going to go up with it as you get into it. So it is one of those things you have to remember to set the global parameters, but again, once they're set, it works pretty dang well.
We just added some for our openings. Yeah. So for our tolerances to get our rough openings from what the architectural opening is, because from builder to builder, those things change.
And then I'm assuming you have those associated to type parameters in families.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. We're going to try that.
Yeah, I've seen other clients do, like even for materials, terrible example, but I've seen clients do, typical office, and then they model all the cabinets in there and they grab all the cabinets and associate these all to plastic laminate or typical office material, typical countertop material, whatever. And that way, if the project changes, literally they're only changing one material or in one location for all of those. And the nice part about the global parameter in a scenario like this, these are all shared parameters for me, so I could do these in a schedule, but you can associate them to also non-shared parameters. So if they're just a family parameter, you can still associate a global parameter to a family or a shared parameter, it doesn't matter. But that's kind of one of those nice things like, oh, I'd love to be able to change all these via schedule. You don't have to convert it. You could just make them a global parameter. And then the other thing that is also, just gonna go here and I don't remember where to do this, but there is a way, I believe it's through filters. You can say is associated to a global parameter. So if we just go do one for walls, new, cool, it's for walls. I think there was a way to come in here. What was that? Was my top offset? My top offset. I thought there was a way to say, yeah, it's associated with a global parameter. So the only downside to this is you can't just say, hey, is it associated to a global parameter? You have to say, is it associated to a given global parameter? So I wish we could just say, hey, is it associated to any? Like if I could just put an asterisk in here and be like, cool, it's associated to any of those global parameters, that would be awesome. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. So you can start coming through here, be like, man, I wanted to know what that top offset, if any of the walls are associated to it, you do have that inside of there. So I wish there was a way to just say is associated to, is associated with, you have to choose one. But once you do get that set up, again, obviously you can then go into your filters, right? We can add that new, was it called? Filter one, and just say, cool, I want to go change all those lines to be some weird color. And therefore you can then see you have all of those walls associated to that global parameter. So really wish you could just say is associated to any global parameter, but it is saying, hey, this specific value is associated to this specific global parameter. So they did add that in the filters as well when we get in there. Yeah, it would be kind of some ors if you went into filters, this or this or this. Yeah, so if I went down to that filter one, I could switch this to be or rules and then add another one in here and say top offset is associated with this one. I don't have another one, but we'll just say any of those. And then yes, you could keep going through and have a crap ton of ors and hope to God nobody creates a new one. But yes, good point, Caitlin. You could go through and set that up. Okay, so I see we got a couple or three questions. So I think we'll jump on over to those. And remember, this is not a show if you don't have any questions. So, and I don't think these three questions are going to take the rest of the 45 minutes. So hopefully you guys will come up with some additional questions.
Let's do Jason's first because it sounds fun. Are you using ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot in your daily workflow? If so, what sort of things you're doing? I think that Brian only uses it when he needs to reword a impolite email.
Impolite, non-politically correct, emotional, very started. Yes, that's about the only time I use it. I put down exactly how I'm feeling, and then I say, make this more PC, and it'll reword those emails for me rather than me getting in trouble with clients. But that's really all I've used it for. I've tried using it for other types of scenarios, doing different things, but I don't, every time I get it, it's just kind of like, yeah, no. I've been laughing that I've been on the, like, I occasionally go up to the Autodesk forums, and there has been a few where you can 100% tell somebody took the question in the forum, put it in Chat GPT, copied that and pasted it, because it's not even actual workflows in Revit on what the hell to fix it. It's just marketing fluff. And that's my problem with most of Chat GPT or any of those is I swear to God, it adds so much stuff. It just seems like marketing fluff to me rather than to the point verbiage.
I used to try to help come up with Revit puns in a speech I had to give. It wasn't very helpful.
I've also laughed because I've literally asked it questions, like I'll be looking at like an Autodesk paper on it, and I'll literally ask it the exact question the Autodesk paper addresses, and it doesn't even like find that thing online to give us feedback. It's kind of like, yep, nope, that doesn't work.
What was the other one that I did? It was funny. Oh, I also use it when people do typos that they just completely mangle the word. I go put the word in ChatGPT and ask for a definition of the fake word, and that's usually pretty fun.
Wow, so you must use that all the time on my Teams chats to you.
uh,
Hmm.
oh, I'm looking through my history in ChatGPT. I have one time I tried to ask it a Revit question. It was not helpful.
Yeah, Michael Freard saying it doesn't actually do any AI. It's basically, spewing out information it already has been trained on.
Oh,
Chat GPT for Revit formulas, I tried it once. It was so far gone. It was more trying to do me like Excel types of things. It did not work at all in the Revit formulas. I was just curious to be like, wait, is this an and or? And yeah, it just failed for me on the Revit formulas. I think most of the time when you're saying formulas, it's trying to think of like Excel formulas, et cetera, et cetera. But that's about it. I have used it, and oh, Joseph just typed this in there too. I have tried to use the Copilot, which now comes with all of the Microsoft tools, but most of the Microsoft Copilot, it's trying to help you with Microsoft-based applications. So I did try it in one, was it Excel or PowerPoint or something? I couldn't remember how to do something, and I typed it in there, and like, yeah, here's the exact steps how to do. It's like, oh, that's right, that's how I do that. So it was kind of beneficial for that. So I know that's what Copilot's been stressing that they are really pushing on is you're supposed to be able to come up here to Copilot and just be like, oh, you can see I've tried a couple. Yeah, this is the one where I was trying to. I should just hide that. This is one of my non-politically correct answers on one of those, but it's kind of like I have went into there and tried to say, like, where's the mouse settings? And it'll show you how to get to your mouse settings. And it does pretty good when you get into the Copilot with Microsoft and what you're trying to get into.
I asked it how much it costs to make a batch of cookies, and I gave it my recipe. Clearly, I use it for very important things. Okay. All right. What's the weirdest bug that you found that
Well, that global parameter one
hasn't
is
yet
pretty
been
good.
fixed in Revit 24?
That global parameter one we literally just found isn't a bad bug. I don't
But
know, I
there's
haven't
also
found too many bugs. I mean, no more than usual with any piece of software, but I don't know if I've really found too many bugs and glitches, other than the randos, like literally Control C and Control V was not working for me this morning, so I had to reboot my computer in Revit. Worked everywhere else, just not in Revit. I'm like, what the heck? So, but that's a, machine bug, not, I don't know. I'm sure everybody else out there is going to have opinions on what bugs they've been finding in 24, but I haven't noticed too much.
okay. All right. So now it's time for modeling a lot of vertical reveals and tilt-up concrete wall systems.
So Tom asked a question, how best way to model lots of vertical reveals for tilt-up concrete wall? Depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So one thing when I work with clients doing tilt-up, one of the tools that you have out there is to be able to part out a wall. So when you select a wall, you've probably all hit this button accidentally, is create parts, right? Because we're trying to grab the stupid section box tool and the buttons look damn similar. So you probably parted out things you don't want to part in Revit. But what's cool about this is if you just have a simple wall like this one, well, actually this wall has gypsum board on it. Let me undo that and let me convert these 4 walls just to be like a concrete wall. I don't have concrete in here somewhere. That's metal stud. There it is. Sure, concrete 8-inch. So when you have a single layer wall and you part out that wall, and you can do all 4 of the walls at the same time, you can do them one at a time if you want to. When you part out these walls, one of the great things about a part is once that's done, you can now take that part and start dividing it. There's multiple ways to divide the part. You can use reference planes or grid lines to divide a part if you want to. You can manually go sketch where you want that part division. So I'm going to come out and grab this wall. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and divide this part. And I got to be level. I don't know why my level got changed. Okay, this has been a weird bug for me today. Every project I've been into, my floor plans have not been associated to the floor plan level. Like it's 4 different projects and it keeps going, I can't use that work plane. I'm like, what? And it's associated to some bizarre thing. And I have not been editing paths of handrails. But so when you say you want to divide this part, one of the things you can come up into is, again, you can say edit references. And when you grab the references, you can grab, like I said, you could start parting it out at levels. You can use grids. You can use reference planes. You can show all of them if you want to. But you have the choice to come through here and divide that part by any one of those things it's in contact with. So if I come in here and say, cool, I want to grab grid 100, and I say, okay, it's now going to divide this wall at that part. Now, finish that. Once you look at that, you will have the capability, and I got to remember where this is. I don't do this often. I thought it was in the overall part itself. Let me say, edit division. Yeah, right here. So when you're dividing a part, you can start using division profiles. Okay. You can create a profile for what you want that division to be. We don't have any in here. So I'm going to go see if I can go say load family. I don't even know where the heck these are out of the box. Profiles. Is it going to be called division profiles? Oh, look at that. So there's a couple in here. I'm going to just grab this one called angled here just to use it as an example. And I'm going to say, go ahead and open this up. And then in here, I should be able to have that angle step. So you can go create your own when you do this. What's also nice about this is you can come in complementary or mirrored. So you can go in, like if you needed to show this as a tilt-up construction and you wanted to have a reveal through it, you can draw your value of what you want that reveal to be like. Then you can come in here and say you want that angle to be mirrored as well. You can also say, cool, I wanted a 1/2-inch gap or whatever else you wanted in there. So it's going to put the gap between those. And anywhere you then come in here and start dividing this family, you're going to have the capability to do that. So if I finish that, now I've got this tilt-up construction wall seeing these parts here. Now, I'm doing this in the reflected ceiling plan, so I'm seeing the parts, because when I divided this into the parts, it automatically switched my view's visibility to show parts. If I go back to level 1 floor plan and look at this, I am not going to see those divisions, right? I am seeing the original 8-inch concrete wall, because in my properties, it's saying show original. Again, at any point in time, I come in and say, nope, cool, let's go back and show those parts, and then it will show it to me. So it is one of those things that you have to let your team members know if you're doing it this way, that yes, I need to show this part here. I need to see what's going on in here. Otherwise, you're going to see the main model. The other reason that this is fun is you can grab each one of those individual parts and you'll see you've got all these properties over here. You can keep the phasing the same. You can start changing the phasing. You can keep the material the same. You could change the material. So if you're like, cool, every other one of these concrete tilt-up walls, one was going to be pink concrete, one was going to be purple concrete, whatever you wanted to do there, you could start coming in here and saying, that's great. I really wanted to, start changing out what's going on inside of this. So now I can just change the material. Or maybe this part here, I also wanted to show the shape handles. And by showing shape handles, then I can make this one part thicker. So I can go in and draw that original 8-inch concrete wall. That's my default. But then I can start coming in here and using parts to go through and say, okay, cool. I wanted that part to be thicker or thinner. I want to change the material, whatever it is you want to go through and do. So cool. That material is very, very, very black in my hatch pattern. Oh, it's probably because I actually have this hatch pattern happening on there. Let's just go change this to be none on this project. Okay, so you have those capabilities to go through. But again, if I switch back to my 3D view, I'm not going to see that again, because in here, it's still saying show original. I'd have to remember to come back and say show parts or show both. Now I can see that reveal. Now I can see what's going on. The cool part about this is even though these are now my parts, if I come back here and say show original, and I take that original wall and move it, let's say I take this door and I'm going to grab this door here and move the door over a little bit. And then I go back and say, cool, that's what I'm doing off the original. The parts are still picking up on that. So I can come through here and show those parts and notice they moved with the original wall. All of that stuff started to change. If I were to go back and grab the original wall and be like, oh, cool, this one really, we needed to change its height from up to level 2 with a -4 offset, whatever. I'm going to go start changing these values. As I change these values, again, those parts are understanding that was my original. This is what I need to do from there. So you have that capability to do this. I've had one client do an entire precast building this way. They just kept dividing it, editing that division, playing with it. And then they may have been like, oh, well, this one here then has divisions in and of itself. So we divided the original wall into parts, but now I can take this part and divide this part into other parts. So cool, I've got this one. I want to go and just sketch some parts on there. I need to switch to an elevation view. Let me cancel that real quick. Cancel that. And then let me go into the elevation view. Think I'm going to be lucky enough to be there? Yeah, no, it's not going to go there. Go create a new view for this. So create a section view here. Please draw these backwards. Go to view. And it is backwards. Did you guys know you can select a crop region on a section and say flip section to actually look the way you want to look? So if you didn't know that, that is a capability. So if you do like I did and put it in a completely wrong location, you can grab that crop region. Again, then I'm going to come over here and say show parts. Those are my parts. I'm going to grab this part. I'm going to say edit division. I want to go sketch this division. And I wanted it to be, I got to go set the work plane. There's the face of that wall. Cool. And I wanted a division to go from here to here. Finish that. Oops, it went through the entire part. Well, but you're getting the point. And the nice part, I think I grabbed the overall part, but you can start doing the individual components and start adding additional parts. And you'll see here's an advantage. Once I divided that part, now I have 4 parts from that one wall. So again, now I could make this one bigger, this one shallower, whatever you need to do, you can start getting into it. Or even you can come down here and just say, hey, I want to exclude this part. Where is the exclude button? It's up here. And now I've excluded that part. So theoretically, it thinks my building now has a notch out of it. Right. Still technically in the main wall. I didn't edit the profile of the wall, but we can have this in here. Now, downside to this is parts are all parts. So if you part out a wall, if you part out a floor, if you part out a ceiling, this isn't a part that's a wall. This isn't a part that's a ceiling. This is a part. And what I mean by that is if I were to go into visibility graphics and come down to parts and be like, that's cool, but I really want all of my parts projection line weights to be an ungodly line weight. What I'm going to be doing is changing wall parts. I'm going to be changing floor parts. I'm going to be changing ceiling parts. I'm going to start changing the line weights for all of those parts. So the downside is everything becomes a part, but the part will also understand its original category. So if you're going to start really diving into parts and you need to start showing things differently, you are going to be massively getting into filters. So if I go create a new filter, parts, wall, right? I'm looking at parts. I've got all of those properties for the parts. And what I can come down here is the, what was it? Original category equals wall or equals floor or equals whatever you want it to be. Now I have a filter to do what I wanted to do for that part. The other thing that's going to be bizarre on that when you start getting into it is since you've converted a floor to a part, the floor will disappear. Excuse me, the floor will remain, but the part will disappear because the part is now outside of your view range, because floors have exceptions to the view range. They can be seen below the view range, parts cannot. So you'd be like, cool, now I've got to go change my view range to look down -6 inches or a foot or whatever you want to do. So you really start getting into when you're doing that, the parts have different rules than those elements you are parting out. But knowing that, you can really start getting to play with it. So again, filters for all of these, right? I said I wanted to go grab my parts that were walls. Now I can go in here to filters, add that filter inside of here and finding my parts filter for walls. Now I can do whatever I needed to do for that, change the line weight, change whatever I needed to do, etc. So you are going to be playing with a crap ton of filters if you're using parts. And again, you can look at any of those. Hey, it's original category, or it's original family, or it's original type. You can use all of those values. You can use materials, etc., and really start coming through and playing with those. So a little bit weird, a little bit funky. The other thing that is possible with parts is you can part through a link. And Desiree, when they first allowed that, God, was that like back in 2009 or something?
I think it was Revit 2013, so maybe 2012.
13, yeah, somewhere like there. Desiree actually, as the structural engineer, the architect modeled all the concrete walls. She just created parts through the link and then was able to divide them where she thought they should actually be. and she didn't model anything herself. If the architect came in and was like, no, I wanted the door to be over here, her parts updated with where the door got moved to from that link. Downside is when the architect moved it and gave her 6 inches of concrete next to it, she's kind of like, hey guys, you can't do that.
Didn't I somehow, I'm trying to remember, somehow put foundations on them too? It's been way too long. Tom put an emoji in the chat, which I'm pretty sure means he thinks I'm old if I wrote a paper on parts 12 years ago.
I think it meant he didn't know you could actually part through a link.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a couple of follow-ups here. Can parts transfer from one project to another? Yes, through the link. Oh, you're not calling me old? Okay, thanks, Tom.
I would think no, they can't transfer through because
You can't,
I mean,
like,
if I
link it
started a new
in and
file
then,
and linked this in, could I
yeah, link it in,
select
copy
and copy
paste.
paste that?
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
not.
No?
I don't know. Let's find out.
There's a couple other sort of tangent questions too.
Let's just
What does it look
see.
like if you have a reveal across those divisions? We'll put a reveal on the entire wall or just part at a time.
You can do it at parts at a time. I screwed something up when I did this. I was trying to do that over here. I'll try it again here once we start a new file. Yeah, no, so the thing is the parts need a host. They need their original object. So if I were to come back and delete the original wall, all of these parts go away. And I did have that happen to one of my clients. Somebody was coming and was like, man, I'm not seeing what Joe over there is seeing. Do I need to go in there? So we saw the walls and thought it was like something on top of it. So we deleted the walls. And then all the parts went away and they're kind of like, what happened? So some guy went in deleting those walls, not understanding that's really what you needed to do. So let's just see. We're gonna come in here and grab parts. Love Zoom in Revit. I'm gonna go isolate the category with my sunglasses. I guess I didn't get the parts category there. That is a part. I have a part. Sunglasses. Isolate category. It was funny, it even gave, oh, because I did part out all the walls. Right, I just did a giant selection window. So let's copy these to the clipboard. Nope. So you can't even copy them to the clipboard. Oh, I guess that answers the question. No, you can't take them from one project to another. You can't even copy them to the clipboard. See, I learned something new today.
I don't know.
If you copied the part and the wall, would that
Can you,
work?
yeah,
Probably.
I feel like you can definitely get the wall. So if you get the wall overall.
Let's see. Copy the clipboard. Nope.
Weird.
You can't even copy the parts.
Parts have been disappointing me all day long.
Well, it just came out with parts. The only thing they modified after they originally came out with parts was the fact that you could part through a link. That was literally the only thing that they did.
Yes,
we'll paste here. I'm pretty sure it's not going to give me any of those parts.
I've actually been playing with parts for a bit of the day today too, guys. You must have been reading my mind.
Yeah, so no, can't copy parts from one to the other.
Okay. All right. Then let's do Rick's 2 questions. Or I guess it's one and a follow-up. Oh, suggestion, save and export as a group. Well, I mean, can you group parts? Because you can't assembly parts. It's the same idea. Show both. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Simon. But you can't even get the wall, the original across.
Oh, you're right. When I copied, I forgot to say show both. No, he's saying, hey, you did it.
Yeah, well, that was, yeah, I was going to say that, but if you couldn't even get the wall itself,
let's see.
copy and paste. Yeah, I don't think it would matter.
Yeah.
So try just the wall. Did you already do that?
Well, I can grab the wall, but the wall's not going to have those parts come with it.
Will it?
No.
I don't know.
Zoom does not like it when you switch from one project to another. Sure.
Yeah, the suggestion was to export as a group. I know, just export an IFC, then import the IFC, then bind the.
Oh, no, it did. Some of them. It didn't grab the other division over here. So possibly if you bring the original and the parts across. But it did not see this division. I don't know why. So yeah.
Yeah,
So that was to answer Tom's original question. That's kind of one thing. So if those reveals go all the way through, I'm going to go back to the original now. If those reveals go all the way through and it is literally tilt-up construction, that's what you want to do. I suggest using parts. If it's no, we just have a whole bunch of reveals to go through the project, then no, there is no, hey, this is a great way. This is how you have to do it. Either you're using the wall reveal command, or personally for me, I'm not a huge fan of the wall reveal command. And the only reason why I say that is got to be horizontal, it's got to be vertical, and 90% of the time I guess somebody wants to do something at a weird angle or whatever else they want to do. So I personally have a generic reveal. So here's another one I've done for a client, which is a reveal tilt up, where they had some sort of crazy weird pattern of, look, I've got these like 6 different reveals. We created a family, we put it up on top of there. But I also have this one here, which is called my reveal chamfer. And this is simply a line-based family. And what's nice about this being the line-based family is then I could come in here. Let me go back to just say show parts. So with this line-based family now, I can come in and it's line-based, so I can say place on face. So now I can just place it right here on the face of this wall. It does not cut out automatically because it's line-based, not host-based, not face-based, nothing like that. But now I can just come back to the modify and say, cool, cut my wall by this reveal, and now I've got it inside of there. So personally for me, I just create multitude of line-based reveal families that I may or may not use. And then I can just go through. And again, I can do it horizontal, I can do it vertical. If I did actually just do this vertically, let's just do a little alignment so I don't have to. Come on, grab the edge of the door. Yeah, you're probably not going to let me do that. Probably not grabbing the right edge of the door. But it's line based. The other reason I'm not a huge fan of like real reveals in there is oftentimes people are going to be like, cool, I wanted a reveal there, and then I wanted one to go across horizontally, right? So I can create the similar, and they don't want it to go all the way across. They just kind of wanted to be doing maybe something like this, and then down like this. I think I actually went to the wrong face. I did undo those last two. Let me isolate this wall. Sure, that'll work. Sunglasses and isolate elements. And then we go create a similar on that one. Make sure I'm still faced. Right, so now I could do whatever I wanted to do with this reveal family. And then I can use the cut command. Check multiple cuts here. Grab the wall and this and this and this and this. Right, so I'm not a big fan of the actual reveal command. And then if you wanted this multitude of times again, then you can grab those and copy it onto the same wall. Probably not long enough to copy it over there, but as long as it's on the same host object, there you go. You do have to run the cut tool each time, which is kind of frustrating, but you get the point. So hopefully that makes it, what you're talking about. Again, I'm not a big fan of the horizontal or vertical reveal because it can only be horizontal or vertical. And then if you actually did the reveal, you're trying to pull these grips back and these grips back. And inevitably, I always end up seeing, oh, look, this object decided to go the full length and ignore the fact that I had cut it down. And all of a sudden those reveals extend the full length of the wall again.
all right. I don't know if you answered Rick's question or not. Once you start talking about reveals and concrete walls, I just think about how much bigger my rebar has to be because you just cut out my cover.
I don't know, it always makes me crack up when I always see like engineers say 3-inch minimum and then they draw this.
You realize that entire wall is now that distance reveal thicker to get the cover for the rebar.
Yep, nope. I always laugh at that. I see it and I'm like, yeah, this doesn't physically work. Because you've got this 2 inch.
But I'm glad you guys think it looks pretty.
So
Anyway,
there you go.
all
That's
right.
my
So Rick
solution. I
reminder
don't know if
said,
that answers Tom. I don't
look
know if
like,
Tom likes that original solution. But yeah, you can copy it. You still have to run the cut tool in mine all the time. Or if you've got a significant pattern of, like I said, vertical, vertical, horizontal, just go create a wall or a face-based family, place it on there and copy it around and be done with it.
so what does it look like if you have a reveal across those divisions? Will it put a reveal on the entire wall or just part at a time, saying typical horizontal wall reveal, not another division?
Well, you
Makes
can
sense.
see, even though these were my parts, I did this in my part. Why do I have like this going on here? Oh, because that's my tapers. I was like, why does it have 3 layers? It doesn't. That's just the crazy ass taper I have in there. I was really confused because I isolated it. So you can see that in here, I just did the reveals in the parts. You can still do that. If I come back to show original, then that's obviously not going to be there, right? But then the real question becomes, if I come into this show original, and let's do this. I want the grip. And then let's cut out of the original. This one. I think it's because I technically hosted that to the part. Let's do a new one. We'll do one like right here above the door and go like this. And then let's cut this. My question is, if I put a reveal into the original wall, is that then going to show on the part?
Rick says vertical division in the wall. Now put a horizontal wall reveal on the wall.
Yeah, so there you go. I just did my own reveal in the wall. The part picked up on it. So if I go back to the show original, you're going to see in the original, I put this reveal. And then when I go back to show parts, the parts also picked up on that reveal as well.
Is that what you're going for, Rick?
So you can reveal the parts, the wall doesn't pick up on it, but if you reveal the wall, the parts do pick up on it. So I think you might be saying the actual reveal tool. So let me go back to show original.
He wants an out of the box Revit wall reveal.
Yeah, that's what I just was saying. Architecture.
I don't know. You guys have gone way so far down the architecture route. I'm like not paying attention.
Reveal.
Oh, he's angry about that.
So there you go. Wall reveal. Then we come back here to show parts. And the parts will pick up on that as well.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. I think that's what he was going for.
And like I said, I've done several projects, and actually some of my projects were, one was precast that we did this entire way. Another one was actually, I think it was just EFIS, but there are so many bumps in and outs on the EFIS, and somebody's like, man, I've got like the same EFIS, but the EFIS is different colors. It's bumping in and out in so many locations. We just parted it out. We started doing divisions into them, and then we just started coming back, because if you part out a multi-layer wall, let's see, we're in show parts right here. Let me go back to original. Let me change this to be a multi-layer wall, not just concrete. Sure. And let's go back to the show parts. That you'll see that this wall now, the EFIS became its own part. So I still have the gypsum board, the sheathing, whatever. We're going to pretend I think this wall's backwards. I mean, but you get the point here. I can divide just this one part. So if I take this and say, cool, let me go edit the sketch on this part. Let me go draw a line and just say, let's go from here to here. Let's finish that division. Now I've only divided this single layer of this part. So now let's finish that division, and then let's grab this one and let's say divide the parts on this one. Let me go no, that's an add a part. I got to remember. Let me go do an edit sketch. But let me change the work plane. Be the face. Now I can go draw a division here. And this is also, it's very weird about Revit and parts. You don't draw to the edge of the wall. You draw to the edge of the extents. So the wall stops here and here, and this line roughly goes a foot either direction, and that's where you do it. So now I can finish that division. So you can see I took this part and divided it. I took the wall, divided into parts, divided this into parts, divided this one into parts, and then I could start being like, ooh, no, let me show the shape handles here and say this one part needed to be bigger, and I wanted to change the material from wood stud because my wall's backwards to something else, and now we have that something else material. So there's a lot you can do with layered parts like this that are a wall, an EIFS, a brick, etc. But again, you've got to let everybody know what's going on. All of these are parts, so the layers are going to be weird. It's not going to automatically join around corners, so you've got to control things like that. But just a thought, parts are something that are out there that finicky, but do give you some options.
Okay, then I think we're still kind of on this tangent. Parts versus curtain wall for tilt up, pros and cons. Parentheses, I like curtain for the ever-changing reveal plats.
Personally, I prefer parts because on a tilt up, it's never a parallel gap. Well, on tilt up, it would be a parallel gap, but like on precast or whatever, you've got reveals. Usually those reveals are being tapered, they're not parallel. What you get with parts is the capability to create whatever profile you want for this to be a reveal here. You could technically create a curtain panel that would do that, but that curtain panel you're going to be trying to create has to be rectangular. So any point in time you get something different, then yes, you got that's non-rectangular. You cannot use a custom curtain panel for that. So you could go create curtain panels. Those curtain panels could be different thicknesses. You also then can't host your typical door inside of it. So then you're trying to divide that curtain panel up, put a wall in there, and then take that wall, a lot of different crazy workarounds that people do for that. I like the parts. Parts are there. They are definitely more nuanced than curtain walls. Curtain walls are probably going to be more understanding and understood by everybody. But also, if I want a 1/2 inch reveal, that means I'm now either putting in a mullion that's very, very thin to look like that 1/2 inch reveal, or calling the mullion as my backer rod and sealant, which I've done before as well. So you can go through and do that. But if I didn't want that reveal to go all the way across, then it's the add remove, click, 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 click to reveal that mullion to go through and get that to have to, remove the curtain wall grid to get that to do what I wanted to do in different patterns. Like as in curtain wall with this would have been a grid line going all the way across. I would have had to remove, 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 and you're spending so long doing that. And then if that was the case, this could not be a custom panel right here because custom panels have to be rectangular. So you are limited in the fact that it has to have complete square edges. 90% of the time, even on tilt up, we're trying to put some sort of chamfer in here. The edges aren't usually perfectly straight. So I just feel you have more flexibility going through and doing it with reveals and parts. But my opinion, everybody does it different. Like I said, if you've got a project where 10 people are working on this, you're probably better using curtain walls because getting 10 people to understand parts, not going to happen.
Okay. Michael wants you to use the mullion for the reveal.
What did you say?
I was just reading Michael's last comment in the chat. I was going back and forth.
Oh yeah. So use mullions for reveals.
Yeah.
Usually when I do a mullion on a situation like that, my mullion isn't a reveal. My mullion is gasketing because technically in tilt up or even precast, we're going to go in and put some backer rod and sealant in there. So I usually will create a mullion that even looks like backer rod and sealant to a point. I mean, it's got to be a profile that goes through. So I even put the little groovy grooves in there to look like it. But yeah, that's what I'll do for my mullions and make that 1/2 inch wide. So I'm not trying to put 2 curtain grids next to each other.
So, Brad, it's definitely a theme today. I also think that you should start some sort of like cloud location or blog post or something of the random crap that you create during Revit Radio, and then post the little structure on there, or maybe give it to like some of your architecture friends and say, "Here, look what I created. Isn't it beautiful?"
That is actually funny. My random shit, Revit Radio random shit. That's
Yeah, there you go.
folder.
I'm this close to having a random shit cloud location for all of the stuff we've been doing lately.
Wait, do I need to chat GPT that to make that term politically
Yes,
correct?
put random shit into chat GPT and see if they clean it up for us.
Yeah,
Michael
Michael's
send you
saying
a
radio random.
Marta now made an acronym of it. That's exactly what we need. Revit radio random shit. RRRS. Just
Yeah, Michael Freeart agreeing. Michael's saying, yeah, curtain walls for multi-users is definitely going to be more user-friendly than trying to do parts and all of that.
All right, so this is right in the same. Oh, you already read it. I see that you've already read it. You want me to still read it?
No, go ahead.
All right. What's the best way to do wainscoting on the exterior? Like brick veneer up to 3 feet, then hardy plank siding 3 feet up. Each has to appear on a schedule with the correct square footage.
So my answer to you deleted it to whoever just asked that question.
Sorry.
Would be model it like it would be built. So when we're starting to look at that, and we are starting to come in here and start saying, okay, and that was Ryan who did that. So we're in here, I model this the way it's going to be built. So if I just come in here and turn my section box on real quick, and I pull this off back here, actually I wanted to keep that part. Oops, wrong grip, this grip. Let's come in sideways here. All right, so if we start looking at this wall here, I had wainscot in this particular project that was going to be the same on the inside. It was all wood base, and there was corrugated metal, and then there was going to be a chair rail, and then whatever this was. And these were all pre-insulated panels, right? So that I built into the wall type, right? So I came in here, I built all of this into the wall type. But the exterior, the original design was, hey, the brick's going to go up a certain distance, and then from the brick, it's going to go up to this. Right, and this is going to change, and maybe it'll be 3 feet over here or 4 feet over there. So you'll see, for me, all of the exterior walls were literally just the finishes. So I modeled the whole insulated panel, right? My basic insulated panel setup here. It's all there. It's got the insulation. It's got the sheathing on the inside. It's got the finished panels, sheathing on the outside. Finished panels, trim, everything on the inside. But then outside of that, I just went through and modeled each individual wall there. The reason why I like doing it this way is, again, I could have come in here and said, oh, cool, this wall wants to be at 4 feet, but no, over maybe on this side of the building, we wanted to go up to 5 feet. So I can take that wall, yep, highlighted walls overlap, I understand that. I can take that wall, move that wall, draw it up to the 5 feet, and I can come in here and take my little, siding wall here and say, hey, the base offset's going to be 5 feet to get that to match. Figure out what I'm doing in the corners or whatever else what needs to happen there. So when I start going through, I truly model this the way this is. Just about a month ago, I worked with a client. She's starting to do this. She's like, that's cool. But, we had this weird on this side of the ground, the grade tapered off. It's like, great. So edit the profile of this wall, take this side down and bring it down to where that grade would be. Remove my constraints, finish that. And now all of this is giving and reporting the correct sizes. Right, then this wall here, I'm gonna have to take that base offset and we'll go down. I think I went 1'6". Oops, -1'6". Forgot my second dash. Right, and then instead of unconnected, that should be 5'6". And this is why I'm not a big deal. So just so you guys know, I literally created this file back in Revit 2006 for a client. I almost never do unconnected at 4 feet anymore. Most of the time for me, I'm like, no, go to that main level, but the top offset be 4 feet off the ground. That way, when I do start changing the base offset, the height of the wall doesn't change on me, things like that. Unless I'm like, no matter what happens at the base, this needs to be 4 feet tall. Usually you're thinking, no, I want this 4 feet from the grade. So rather, again, than saying unconnected, I'm usually like, no. Be at the same level, wrong button, be at the same level, but be 4 feet off the ground. So that's kind of the way I do things now, like I showed you my global parameters. Again, then if this was going to be here, I would edit the profile of this one, grab these sketch lines here, pull them down to there, finish that, remove my constraints first, finish that, and now, cool, look at those stone finishes. Yes, now I'm going to get the appropriate square footage on all of this stuff. So when I come back here and that's all done, now I can go to my material takeoff. Do I actually have one? Nope. Schedule. This name is different. That's a great schedule. I wonder what that's scheduling. Oh, I was showing somebody something. Nope, so that's not a material takeoff. But so now I can go up to my view tab. I can go to my schedules. I can do a material takeoff, right? And all of those values are going to be getting picked up on that. And for some reason, it decided to open up full screen on my third monitor. I have no idea why. That's why the odd shape of this. All right, so multi-category schedule, that's great. I'm just going to grab it for walls currently. I probably would say multi-category, but that's fine. And then we're going to go down the materials and let's grab the material area, material name. Switch those around, sort and group it by the material name, uncheck itemize every instance, go to my formatting, grab area and tell it to calculate totals and say, okay. And now I've got all of those different materials for what I need to do on those walls, right? And that was probably my stone. So right here, you can see it's 430 square feet. If I were to come back here and say reset, and we'll do this one too, because that was going to be much greater square footage. Reset, go back to my schedule. I should no longer be 430 square feet, but something left. Where is that? Masonry stone, 405. So for me, I model it as it would be built, model each layer independently, go through and set it up, and get into there and play with it. The other thing that you can do is on these upper walls, if you're like, man, I just always want this upper wall to do whatever this lower wall is doing. I'm just going to pull it up here for a second. You can always detach or attach or detach. Wrong button. Try that again. You can always come up here and say, I want to attach the base of the wall to another wall. So now if you come in here and say, no, 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 that wasn't at 4 feet, that was at 3 feet, that wall's just going to go along for the ride and you don't have to move it. So something else that I do as well is I will often attach the upper walls to the lower walls. So as I go through and start changing that, it does update. And then for me, all the little pieces of trim, that was built, not built into the wall. That's just a wall sweep that I did. I put a sweep on each one of the walls. Currently now, I would probably do that with a line-based trim family like I had at the Reveal. But back in 2006, I did this as a sweep family. Again, I was also trying to use all out of the box for this particular client.
Okay. All right. In your last couple of minutes, maybe you can get both of Rick's. I think they're connected. So he asks, what's the difference between structural plans and regular floor plans? And is there a reason I can't change the look of the columns in my structural plan? The columns are in the linked model.
Okay, so structural plans, the difference between the two is where they show up in the project browser. If I go to plan view, structural plan, I'll go create one for level 1. Cool, my main level, sweet. Okay, so one thing, they're going to show up in different locations in the project browser, right? I come down here and now it's going to be under structural plans. The other difference between the two, if you say edit type on a structural floor plan, you can tell it to look up or down. So instead of looking down, I want it to look up, kind of like an RCP. Why they give that for an option on floor structural plans, I don't really know. So now you can see I'm no longer looking down, but I am looking up at the ceiling. And if I go into my view, that's not view range.
Because if we would break out in hives if we didn't have the word structural in something that was.
And if I come up here and say, oh, look, now this says a level above, not level below, because I'm looking there. Let me go to level above. Let me go say, hey, 6 feet up. I'm now looking up like this was an RCP and I'm looking at the roof.
Yep.
And yeah, then so you have a structural plan, you can see the floor plan. Honest truth, if I am an architect and I want to, like a residential architect, and I want to show all of the electrical outlets, et cetera, I do it as a structural plan looking up, and I set my cut plane to be 6 inches just so it's grouped somewhere different, but now I'm looking up and I can see everything. So my floor plans that are going to be my outlets, et cetera, I basically do it as a structural plan looking up. You go into fine level of detail in here.
A whole bunch of, he's asking a whole bunch of follow-ups too.
Go into my view range, not my view range, dang it. That's fine. I wanted to go into VG. So I saw somebody had a follow-up of railings. Railings are on. No, so it doesn't look like railings show up. Was that because of my discipline? No, my discipline's coordination.
I find that when people accidentally do floor plans rather than structural plans, I have a hard, like they don't see all of the elements in the same way that structural engineers would be expecting to see them. So like there you're seeing framing, as solid lines rather than hidden dashed lines. Well, but you're looking up, so.
I'm looking up, yeah. So that's really the only difference. And again, if I go back to floor plan and I say at a type, there is no look up, look down, you don't get that option. That's really the only difference in my mind. Now, it basically behaves the same as an RCP would, because RCPs, you have issues showing railings, just like you do with structural plans looking up, which I just found out. So kind of one of those scenarios as you get in, you start looking at it, it's like, yeah, okay, there you go. I don't know. I think it's like Desiree said, because engineers were freaking out that they were under floor plans, not structural.
I think that there's differences in the hidden line situation as well, but I live in structural plans, so I don't want to conjecture. Then did you get the one about why can't I change the look of the columns in the structural plan? The columns are in the linked model.
That would be because in your structural engineer's family, their structural family under the edit type, they have the checkbox here set to show family pre-cut and plan view.
Yeah.
So when you look at a structural column family, if you edit the type of it, in the properties of the family here, there is show family pre-cut and plan. What that means is I am going to pick up on the view range of the floor plan in the family and show the column cut at that location. So if you have a slanted column and it's in there and the view range in this family is set to be 4 feet, that's where it is going to show that structural column. So if I'm going to say show families pre-cut and plan, because oftentimes people want to see the column at the grid intersection, they don't want to see it slightly off on a tapered column, then I literally in my family come up here and say, cool, let's set the view range up to be 1/2 inch in the family, because whatever the view range in the floor plan of this family is set to, that's what you will be seeing for it in the project. So my guess is that's what's happening in that column family, and why you can't get the look to change is you're like, cool, I wanted to see it where it's actually cut. Nope, it's not going to be there. If you want to make your columns red, it's probably because they have them on a subcategory, and that subcategory is not a subcategory that you have in your project. Whenever I'm trying to create things through links, I use filters. So I would create a view filter for whatever the column names they have are called, whatever. Hey, it's got timber in the name, it's got wide flange. A lot of structural engineers put like STR in front of them or whatever. I create a filter based off of a property of what they have, and I use filters to control that. But more than likely, they put that on a subcategory in their structural columns, and you don't have that subcategory, therefore you can't change the override the look.
Or you're seeing structural engineers, but that's not something likely that we would do. You create a bunch of subcategories.
It is for a lot of structural engineers, but more than likely it's because they're actually not seeing they're seeing the 2D geometry. The other thing to look at is, can you make sure that columns in VG are set to be fine? So if you go into structural columns, you always can come over here on the far right side of anything, and you can say, I want those elements to be fine, because you're probably looking at yours in coarse or medium, and you're actually probably seeing the 2D line work of that family, not the actual 3D objects of the family. Because most structural engineers in medium or fine show 2D line work, not the 3D modeled objects. So that would be my guess. It's either the fine or this, or like I said, they've come down here and changed one of these things. Like you're looking at the stick symbols, not the actual column. You're looking at some sort of other subcategory that you don't see here, but you would see through the manage links up here, not manage links, excuse me, up here, you'd see the Revit links, find that link, go to custom, go to model categories, custom, go down to their structural, then you might see all the subcategories they have. But no, I often have clients who Desiree create one like structural columns versus structural posts versus whatever, and they actually model them on different subcategories.
Well, then they don't know how to use Revit properly.
They're doing it because they want the different line makes to make things turn red.
Well, yes. Okay, never. I will flick them on the forehead when I meet them. And then Marta wants to know why didn't you stack walls?
I am not a big stacked wall fan. Matter of fact, I completely despise stacked walls. Part of the reason I wouldn't use stacked walls is in an exact scenario like this. If I had used a stacked wall and I wanted this one to be 4 feet tall, but this one to be 5 feet tall, and this one to be 6 feet tall, that is 3 individual stacked walls. So I've got to have one where the base wall is 3 feet, the one where the base wall is 4 feet, and you're constantly going through and creating duplicates for the different heights. Yes, this building, when it was all said and done, ended up being the same height, but not going to do there. The other problem is if your stacked walls are different thicknesses. So this bottom wall is 2 inches thick, this one's an inch and a half thick, and this one up here is 3/4 of an inch thick, or whatever. When you do that, Revit looks to the base wall's thickness property when doing joins and other things. So if you were to come through here and do that, it's going to be like, oh, my overall thickness is 3 inches. So it's going to kind of ignore what the hell is going on here. And if I wouldn't have had like trim on this outside corner and these were stacked walls, I probably would not get these walls joining in the corners. They do so many horrible things that in my entire 20 years using Revit, 22 years using Revit, I've used stacked walls twice. I just
Yeah, too many
don't like
combinations.
them. They cause issues. You're not in any control how any of the cleanups or anything work. It's just not a big deal.
Seems like you're in good company on hating stacked walls here. There's too many combinations. I'm more likely to unlock layers and things like that. Although, you know, I'm talking about concrete layers and things, not pretty finishes like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Marta says, "Oh yes, I remember this now." She's like, "Oh, never mind on that question."
That question. Yeah, and Michael's even here saying, "It's like, yeah, you're like, this is a great idea," and then as you work through the project, you're like, "Oh my God, no!" And if you do actually have a stacked wall, if you draw a stacked wall, a lot of people may or may not know this, but when you do a stacked wall, my stacked wall is so
Yes.
great. It's too short.
What if the gas station would change your life? Sorry, I'm reading all the comments.
Top of footing up to roof, whatever. Very tall stacked wall here. A lot of people don't know. You can see my stack. Well, actually, I said out of the box stacked wall here. A lot of people don't know is that when you create a stacked wall, you can divorce it or at least make it break up. So you can take a stacked wall and go in and say break up. I actually say it's a breakup, not a divorce, because just like people who are married who have children, you are still going to be part of each other's lives for the rest of your life, right? So the reason why I say that is when you do this, even though you technically broke these walls up and it went through and gave this a base offset, etc., inevitably what ends up happening is something bizarre will happen. Also notice all the walls became unconnected. So originally I said go from level 1 up to the roof level. Now this is just top of footing unconnected. And so they become unconnected. And I've done things where it's like, oh, let me come over here and move this wall out. And that wall moves and I didn't want it to. So theoretically you can break it up if you've made it a stacked wall. I've just still seen Revit have some relationships. And I'm like, yep, nope, I would rather delete it and start over.
Sorry, everybody's cracking me up. Michael, I don't know why facade is correct, but Desiree is not. Most of our country doesn't know how to put the accent on my name. Then there's STP files, and then there was a comment in the chat about tube steel families.
Oh, and there's also in here too that if you do look at this, like somebody's just said, structural wall, you have to tab select to get the properties of it. If I want this one non-room bounding, or I want that one to be structural, you're constantly tab selecting to do these things. I am not a big fan of stacked walls. The only time, one of the 2 times I used it is this entire building, there was a raised floor system, and then all the interior walls were built on top of the raised floor system. But everywhere there was an interior wall, they literally had to have a steel plate below it. So I think it was one of the first casinos to do this. So they had to like model a steel plate underneath every single interior partition. That's the only time I used it because it was kind of like, I don't give a shit if that doesn't clean up because it's below the floor. No one's ever going to see it. So it's the only time I've really used that.
I feel like all these terms that they've baked in, you know, family and breakup, and it's like Revit home record.
Oh yeah, and then Joseph said that he thinks there's an HSS families don't have projection lines inside the families.
Yes. Impossible to get them to show up below floor at 8-inch scale. Poof, my adjustments disappeared.
So yeah. And then last question, have I used STP files? No, I have not.
I have very limited.
Yeah, Ben says he created a CAD file from an STP, exploded it, then turned it into a Revit family generic model, was able to use it in the model. Is there any way to help with the model visibility of this? No. So that's part of the things when Revit brings in things like that, you end up getting what's called a direct shape file inside that family. And that direct shape file is what it is. It's a one-time off. It's a one-time off scenario. You've just got to deal with it the way you can deal with it. The one thing I did want to know is in CAD.
It's a one-night stand causing a breakup of your stacked wall.
Yeah, STL, that's what I was trying to think of. I was gonna say, I didn't think we had STP files, but we do have STL files. A lot of people don't know that when you do go to linked CAD, there are all of these file formats that you can bring in. So you can bring in OBJs and STLs, SketchUp files, etc., but not STP
You can
files.
do
So
it through Navis, but that you don't get anything you can do anything with other than move it around in your model.
yeah, that was the only other suggestion I was gonna say, because it sounds, Ben, like you're just trying to bring this in. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure an STP file can be hosted on the Autodesk Construction Cloud, and
I don't know about that, but Navis
you
works
can view it. In Revit 24, any file that can be viewed on the Autodesk Construction Cloud can be inserted as a coordination model. So you can say, I want to go bring in a coordination model from Autodesk Docs. And if you're going on to Autodesk Docs, that coordination file can then be brought into Revit, and it will be a file that's there. You'll see it to print. You can tab select to get properties of elements. I don't know what you would get visibility, but it might be another option for you to try. So think about that. Try if you have the Autodesk Construction Cloud, if you're in, BIM Coordination Pro, or sorry, BIM Collaborate Pro, try dragging that STP file into your project folder. If you can view it online, then you can link it in as an Autodesk Docs coordination model. Might be another thought for you to try.
Coordination models have some funky behavior. I don't know if Docs will change this, but for example, if you want to print a 3D PDF, anything that's brought in as a coordination model just disappears when you print it. I had that problem in my damn modeling days, like DAM, not.
Yeah, and then Simon saying if that came in as a direct shape, they're extremely heavy, and he's seen model corruption. I think that depends on the direct shapes coming in, but.
Well, there's lots of things that will trigger that direct shape thing. Like an IFC file will do that too.
Yep. If it's an unrecognized object. So
Yeah.
hopefully that answers your question. You're just screwed. Find somebody who actually, lives in America, knows how to work with Revit, get rid of the STP file, and call it a day.
Oh,
I always feel for people throughout the rest of the world where Revit isn't the main program, and they've got to deal with ArchiCAD and all these and Bentley art, whatever it's called, the architectural tool for that. It's like, oh no, I'm glad you guys don't have to do it. So
yeah, Marcel. He did the elephant with curves and lofting. That was ages ago.
yeah, Ben's like, it's a European client, that's why he's dealing with it. Yep, exactly. It's not someone in America. Know that for sure. Well, I appreciate everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll have Melissa back with us to add some more laughter in with us. And otherwise, like usual, thanks everyone for coming. Tell your friends, family, enemies. And the only thing I'm not sure that I want all you guys to check is we extended the amount of meetings that were here. So I don't know if you only were registered through the ones through February. You're not going to get them anymore, but you might want to click on the link to go register again and make sure you're registered for the ones throughout 2025. Otherwise than that, thanks everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next month.